Cuba, the United States. Separated by nearly 150 kilometers, these two countries are connected through the shared waters of the Gulf of Mexico and the Loop Current. What happens in the waters of one country has impacts on the shores of another. In the result of oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, these shared waters would require a united effort from the US, Mexico, and Cuba to protect the people, environment, and resources threatened by the moving oil. But the first step in understanding the spill's impact is knowing what lies beneath the waves. After the Deepwater Hroizon oil spill, researchers from the C-IMAGE Consortium began annual expeditions to the northern Gulf of Mexico. Their goal was to establish a timeline for the recovery of the seafloor and fishes exposed to 790 million liters of oil and 7.5 million liters of dispersants. Research cruises have been ongoing to the Deepwater Hroizon site since 2011. The focus of these expeditions changed in 2015. In addition to the annual trips to the Deepwater Hroizon site, research teams needed to establish a significant baseline from other Gulf of Mexico oil spills, especially the 1979 Ixtoc spill. Four expeditions to Mexico brought OneGulf into a wider perspective, with samples from all sides of the Gulf, except for one missing piece: Cuba. A collaboration between the three Gulf nations started in May 2017, when researchers from the RV Weatherbird II sailed from St. Petersburg, Florida to Merrill, Cuba. For the next 2 weeks, American, Mexican, and Cuban scientists and students would foster international collaboration and collect critical baseline samples from the fish and seafloor sediments from across the northwest coast of Cuba, as far east as Havana, as far west as the San Antonio Bank. The first day of this expedition provided an at-sea classroom for the Center of Marine Studies at the University of Havana, with demonstrations of longline fishing, sediment coring, bongo netting, and rosette water sampling.
The students for first time, most of them they see a multi-core. How does it work? CTD and also the bongo neck, all of these things that we are doing is new for them. And if they are making the practical issues of the deployment, for instance, they never will forget that.
During the day, the Weatherbird would fish only a few kilometers from shore, but in waters hundreds of meters deep. With demersal longline techniques, the same used throughout the Gulf of Mexico, various sharks, groupers, and deep-sea species were collected. Larger sharks were tagged and returned to the ocean. Fishes were measured, weighed, and dissected for liver, muscle, bile, and otolith samples, all to be analyzed back in the laboratories for their exposure to oil and other pollutants. Under the moonlight and the glow of the ship's lights, the sediment team gets to work. Using a multi-core lowered to the seafloor, cores of sediments were collected and brought to the ship's deck. These cores were cataloged and labeled for analysis back in the laboratory. Sediment chronology, oil residue, organic matter from rivers, invertebrate species abundance, and microbial biology will all be studied from these valuable cores. Analyzing these cores will show a timeline of events throughout Cuban and Gulf history as told by the chemistry and geology in the deeper muds. The outcomes of this collaborative expedition reach far beyond the field of science. This rewarding partnership has started a conversation for future efforts exploring more of the Gulf of Mexico during 2019 expeditions.
What I see as the important fruits of our labor is the notion of science diplomacy, that away from all the politics of our countries and policies, we are, after all, just scientists, and we share so much in terms of our goals for the Gulf, sustainable Gulf and sustainable communities that depend on the Gulf's resources.